Well, hey, you guys, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. And it's so good to be back with you. We've been spending a lot of time together, and I'm super stoked to be going over what I'm going to go over with you in a minute. That's what we say in California when we're really excited. It's a surfer term. Stoked. Okay, well, listen, shout out where you're from because once I get this train going, I'm going to roll all the way through and we'll take questions at the end. But Jared, where is everybody from?
Uh, I think before you go, it sounds like you are not using the right microphone, I think.
Oh, well,
You're
that's.
sounding a lot more echoey than usual.
Uh,
It might be an eCam, so I would check that.
let's check. You talk while I check this out.
Yeah, we've got, I see Bert. Bert's able to make it. It's been a while. Glad that you were able to take a break from teaching. Let's see, Bethany, Jeff. We've got our Chicagoland team. Uh, Jeff's joining us from Tennessee. We got San Francisco, Brazil, lots of people, Maine. Ooh, somebody's here from Saudi. That's
All
awesome.
right. Well,
Birmingham,
sorry on the
all over
audio.
the
How does
world.
it sound to you guys? Because everything from my end says I'm using the right mic and so forth, but we've been having these issues. Jared and I are trying everything we can. You can see now I'm using this rather than my AirPods, which seem to possibly have been causing a problem. But how does that sound, you guys? Are we okay? Before we launch into this thing, somebody give me a heads up.
Yeah, I'm listening right now.
Okay.
It's on the delay, so
Yeah. Okay. So anyway,
yeah,
we're okay.
still sounding pretty echoey.
Huh.
I'd say just talk as close to the mic as you can.
We'll
Maybe that
bring it
might
up. How's that right there?
help.
Is that better?
All right. If there's anything super bad, I'll let you know.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, you guys. Let's dive in. And first of all, I want to let you know that our show, as always, is brought to you by our friends at Bay Photo. Make sure you guys are making prints because this is what it's all about. And they've got specials here, the 15% off on their metal prints. Those are really cool. I've got a couple of them. And the acrylics are gorgeous. You can see 20% off on those. And of course, there's their plaques again, and 25% off on your first order, whatever it is. So you could order a book, you could order note cards, you could order whatever you want, but take advantage of these because we want you to have prints, and you'll hear me talking about it as we go through this. So, Jared, before I launch into this, let me know if there's anything I need to tweak or change so that we're all on the same page here. How does it sound?
Yeah, I don't know what's up. It changed it, so I think you're using your computer audio when you're on just you, but then when you're on your computer screen, it's using your microphone. So
Let's try this. How does
I
that
think
sound? Is that better?
I'll know in a little bit.
Right. I think.
Meanwhile, while we're waiting, I see Rachel and Paul.
Okay. Display. Yeah, I
A
think I
lot of
see the
people saying
problem.
better now,
I think
so
that was
that's
going for both audios on this screen. I apologize, you
oh,
guys.
okay. That would explain it.
It does that sound better?
Yeah,
Our
I think.
platform has little gremlins in it and does things overnight. You set it up perfectly and then it just does its own little thing. Don't you love electronics? Why do these computers and everything we're relying on have little gremlins in it? Well, listen, you guys, let's get this party started. So I'm going to just get going here. I do need to change one thing before. So let's get the right. There we go. Okay. All right. I'm going to talk to you guys about how to open the door to reaching your goals as a photographer. I've been on the phone with many of you recently talking about goals, and it made me realize that I needed to focus in on this a little bit more myself and really find out what is it? What are the ingredients and what works and what doesn't? So let's, without further ado, You guys know who I am, but what the heck, Marc Silber. I have been a multi-best-selling author. I've won multi-awards in the video industry, and I've done hundreds of interviews with top photographers. And you'll see as we go through this how important that is. Now, first of all, what is a goal? The goal is to advance your photography to a level of professionalism in your desired genre. So, whatever it is you're shooting or you want to shoot, whatever you want to capture, you want to be a professional. Each person has their own exact goal. What do we mean by a professional? Do we mean somebody who has to go out and earn their living doing it? Per the Oxford Dictionary, it's a person competent or skilled in a particular activity. It doesn't mean that this is your primary source of income. It means that you're competent or skilled in that area and you could sell your work. Maybe you want to, maybe you don't, but you achieve that level. Would you guys agree with me that that's what we're all after in our chosen field? Now, I can't tell you what your goal is because it's unique to you, but I'm just pointing out that we all want to achieve this level of skill in our genre. Now, there is a common misconception that you can achieve your goal by going to art school. And I've got sad news for you. These are not my thoughts. This is the stats, and this was from the 2012 US Census. There's 12 million art graduates with bachelor's degrees in the arts living in the United States, and fewer than 200,000, which is 10%, make their primary earnings as working artists. So here's their little diagram. So we've got 2 million artists who have graduated. I don't know the entire length of time, but that was as of the 2012 census. But only 200,000 of those are working as artists. Now, we could add to that and say, well, okay, what about the ones who are, again, like, professionals, but they're not necessarily working? So maybe it goes up. But anywhere in the range of 10% is just, would you want a camera that only shot 10% of the time? Would you want a cell phone that worked 10% of the time? What if your car, 1 out of 10 times started? What if your food, you go out and buy food and only 1 out of 10 times is it good, wholesome food, and the rest of the time you can't eat it? This is unbelievable. This is mind-blowing. So let's be charitable and say there's another 10% who are not working, but they're satisfied with their art. So we got it up to 20%. Now we're talking about 2 out of 10 times your car starts. So this is just unacceptable. So I wanted to dig. I had a feeling it was kind of in this range, but honestly, I didn't know it was this harsh. So after art school, unfortunately, I was one of the 90% who didn't work in the arts. And I wrote about it in this book here, Create. I wrote my story about that. Truth is, I was a far better photographer as a high school. When I graduated from high school, I had a major project under my belt, which I sold, and a solid body of work. Later, I will tell you, by the time this 2012 census came around, I was working as an artist. I'm not going to tell you that whole story because it's in my book, Create. So I was for a long time in the 10%, in the 90%, and then later joined the 10%. But this is some of my work. Some of you guys are familiar with it. This is stuff I did as a teenager primarily. I had this wonderful adventure in Mexico, so I took dozens of rolls with my Rolleiflex, this camera right here, and came back and printed these, and it formed a body of work. It formed a project, which you're going to hear about in a second, how important that is. These are some of the, sort of highlighting some. This was actually taken in the 7th grade. This was in the 8th grade. So I knew what I was doing. This was at my senior year in high school, same time period. This was right around that same time period. Good example of leading lines. I didn't know these terms necessarily, but I kind of intuitively somehow picked them up through reading books, looking at other artists. It sort of just kind of got to me one way or another. And it wasn't till years later when I really, really studied photography that I, found out why these points worked. So, why didn't art school work? Well, okay, let's take a look at that. There's a couple of reasons. So, unlike the sciences, there is a lack of a standard technology and standard text. And this is what prompted me to write Advancing Your Photography. I discovered this. I thought, okay, there's some books out there that definitely do contain good and accurate data, but you have to read about 10 of them to connect all the dots. And you don't know which 10 those are. Some of them are right on and some of them are not. So I wanted to take all that information, sift it out, and I did that by talking to the 10% of the working photographers. Now, let's look at those stats. So we have the 10%. Of those 10%, I only interviewed the ones that I really admired their work, and I knew that they had something to say that was meaningful and that would really resonate with the greater community of photographers. So that's whittling it down from the 10%. I went down to the 10% of the 10%, and maybe even the 2% of the 10%. So we're talking about a very rarefied group of photographers who are making a living at it, who are making a difference in the world of photography. And then I sifted through what they said, because it wasn't like every word that came out of their mouth was absolutely pristine and perfect either. So I sifted through that and evaluated their data and only passed along what I believe to be true. So it's also really, really vital. So none of this existed in art school. None. Zero. It was all just based on the instructor's whatever. And it could be his opinion from day to day. This is not how to learn. You don't learn science this way. We look at text. We look at standardized bodies of knowledge when we study science. It's vital to also, you must clearly understand each term. If you do not, you're going to be super confused and lost. You know what that's like. You also need to work with the objects being discussed. In other words, if we're talking about lighting, get a set of lights and move them around. Smooth gradient of learning is, okay, lighting is a good example. Don't immediately start talking about a full studio setup. Start with one light. Move it around. Get to know that one light source. It could be a window. It could be artificial light, like I have here. But get to know that one light before you go to the next step. We want a smooth heel of learning. The next step could be two lights. And that's, again, what I tried to do in my teaching, which, believe it or not, well, you can believe it, because if 90% don't follow their passion, there must be something wrong with the system. Criticism versus critiques. Criticism is really destructive for artists because it's basically negative and it doesn't offer a solution. Critiques do follow that. So you hear that in my critiques. If I point out something, I also point out how I believe you could do it better. And part of the thing that happened here with the instructors in art school is that you were in favor or not in favor. If you were in favor that day during the class, you really felt great. If you weren't, oftentimes you were just passed over. They didn't even talk, the instructor didn't even talk about your work, which is another form of criticism, just being ignored. And of course, what do you think that did to your confidence? Went out the bottom. Again, we're studying a flawed system here, you guys. I mean, 90% failure rate means you're not very confident about what you're doing. What I needed the most wasn't even being taught. I mean, it's hard to believe. I didn't need an instructor's opinions. I needed the technology of the art of photography. And I later, after these over 1,000 hours of interviews, I summarized it in this little graph right here, the 5 stages of photography. Nobody else You can't find this anywhere else. Nobody else seemed to put all the dots together. I'm not patting myself on the back. I just wanted to do it. First, it started out as 4, and then I played around with it. And over the years, I finally realized it was 5. You got to visualize. You've got to understand your equipment. You capture it, which means lighting and composition. You've got to process it, right? How many times do images come out perfect out of the camera? For me, 0. So, whether it's processing in the darkroom or processing with your software, you've got to process it. And the most crucial thing that ties this all together, you got to share it in some form where you can get it out to other people. And again, we didn't study any of this stuff. So this was all figured out many, many years later. As a result of all these things that weren't there, my self-confidence, boom. And that's why I chose another career. Let's face it, if you're really confident and you feel like you've got all those 5 things in place, what are you going to do? You're going to do it. So it wasn't until many, many years later that I went, okay, I got to figure this out. And it was by that time, decades had gone by. But what did work? There were some things that worked in art school. There's 2 things that worked. One, or A, we chose our project for the year or the quarter, whatever it was, and we stuck to it. So we chose a long-term project. The instructor didn't tell us what to do, but then we had to stick with it week after week after week, which means no matter what, you have to keep on top of that project. And there was, you were weekly critiqued. There was internal pressure from, other members of the group. You saw what they were doing. You didn't want to, slack off. But the weekly pressure, which isn't a bad thing. We've talked to Dan Milner, we've talked to Bob Holmes. When you go out on a photo assignment, you have pressure to come back with the goods. Same thing was created here, which is good. And the only other part of that was you were part of a community. But it was, I'm going to be honest with you again, it was a dysfunctional community because the rest of it wasn't working well. But if we have those in a positive way, we've got something that can actually work. So now then, what do we look at? Oh, this was kind of and I give you some idea. This isn't the actual wall, but this is how we would in the studio room where we critiqued. Everybody just pinned their photos to the wall, and then it was on 3 sides of the walls. You would just walk around from student to student, and they would be critiqued. Well, now we do it obviously digitally, but that's how it was done back then. Okay, well, now that we've seen why it doesn't work and what doesn't work, let's look at what would be the ideal photography school, okay? Number 1, there'd be a body of true data, okay? As I've already mentioned, it's been sifted through, it works. How come we know it's true? Because it works. It's not just, again, a bunch of random ideas and opinions. We know these things work. And it should be in book form so that it's portable. I'm a big, huge book reader. And when I read a book, I underline and I make notes in the margin so I can come back and find this stuff. And if I really like something, I'll type out the quote. Books are essential. But films are also essential because they're visual. So that's why I'm not making this as an advertisement. I'm just telling you this is how it works. I've turned these into video classes as well. So the combination of those works beautifully because you've got the book, you can carry it around, you can pick it up anytime you want, and you've got the video class that you can look at. There should be a mentor, and a mentor is defined as an experienced and trusted advisor who has done the hard work and sifted through the true from the BS. This started out as an Oxford quote, but I changed it a little bit. So, and has demonstrated competence in that field. So you want to make sure that you are being taught by somebody who has also on their own demonstrated competence and has sifted through this stuff. I contend you cannot teach photography just out of your own experience. This is a big field, you guys. I can't master every part of it, and I don't. I would never claim to. But I can talk to those people like Joe McNally, who is a master of light. I can talk to, Bob Holmes, master of so many, elements, but certainly getting that crucial moment, the punctuation point. So if we pull all that together, again, in the sciences, we don't read one person's material, we study a body of work. But it has to be sifted through so we know that what we're studying actually is true data that works. This is just one example of my one of my photographs that I captured after I came back into the 10%. Many decades later. That actually is my wife at the D'Orsay Museum, and it's the cover of this book because it kind of shows a lot of different compositional elements, mainly geometry, but also there's a pattern there, which she is breaking the pattern because she's offset. So there's a lot of different compositional tools being employed there. There's also mentorship, which is the guidance provided by a mentor, especially an experienced person in a company or educational institution. You want to be guided by somebody who knows what they're doing again. All this boils down to what a real masterclass could be summed up as. It's a class given to students of a particular discipline by an expert of that discipline where skills are being developed. Really, that last part is what's important, where skills are being developed. Just like we develop a negative, skills have to be developed. They have to be strengthened, just like we do in sports. You don't go out the first day when you want to learn how to surf and expect to catch giant waves. You can't even say that you're going to catch a wave. Hopefully, by the end of your first surf lesson, you will have stood up and caught one wave, which you'll look back on later like, whoa, I can't even believe that was exciting. But it was. It'll thrill you out of your mind. If you've learned any sport like skiing, golf, tennis, your first attempts at it are often frustrating. But if you have a good teacher, they will guide you through to a win so that you're building on a series of wins. And that's what I hope I'm helping you guys with. This is really, really, really important. We need to be working on a long-term project. By long-term, I mean at least like 3 months, okay? Not a week, not 2 weeks. Each student chooses and sticks with it no matter what. And I mention that because no matter what means all the challenges that can get in your way. Challenges of weather, your schedule, you were going to go shoot something and your camera isn't working. I mean, there's all this stuff that faces you when you're working towards a project, but you have to learn to overcome those things. Listen, I've gone to plan B. I've gone out, I was shooting in Milan. And I had one battery with me and it went dead. So what did I do? I just switched over to my iPhone. I got an incredible iPhone shot. You got to learn, no matter what, you have to come home with the goods. We show up weekly, ideally. And in that weekly meeting, we receive constructive critiques with reference to the body of technology that we're using. In other words, we're not, again, randomly just pulling stuff out of our you-know-whats. We're using the body of technology as a reference, as a foundation. And you should be deeply studying the genre that you have chosen. Now, that can mean if I'm doing a series of portraits, let's study not just the photography masters, but the masters of painting. Because Vermeer, for instance, here he is, you can learn so much from this painting, how he lit with one window, the shading and everything, the positioning of his model. You want to take a deep dive into your genre and really deeply look at other photographers, other painters, other artists for that matter, in that field. Just immerse yourself, get to know them. You want positive guidance. And from the critiques, you study. Let's say there's a point that needs to be corrected. You restudy that point from the book or the video, whatever, and go out and shoot again. Do that week after week so that you're not ending on, well, I didn't do it right. You're going back out, just like we do in sports. You fall down when you're on a surfboard, you get up, you go out again. You fall down on a pair of skis, you get up, you go down the slope again. Music, you mess up a chord or whatever, you do it, you practice until you've got it. And that's how you advance towards your goal. It's all towards wins. It's all towards teaching you in the direction of wins. And I could sum up the entire experience of why art school doesn't work because they don't teach people towards a win. Boy, that's a profound statement that has all sorts of resonance to it. We want to work towards a win. And that doesn't mean you do it right all the time. It means that if you don't, you practice it until you've got it down to your satisfaction. And also, you're bringing it to a group, they'll see it as well. You guys following that? It's pretty important. So these are components. Now, one last thing. At the conclusion of each quarter, a book should be compiled, which gives a finite and exchangeable endpoint to your work. This builds confidence and satisfaction. So if we have a group of 12 or 20 people, let's say, in the group, we select, people can select their own top 3 or 4, whatever, with whatever text they want in it. And that all goes into a book, like a blurb book that Dan Milner can help us with. And that book is published. So you have in your hands not only your own work, but the rest of the community. And there's a tremendous satisfaction that goes along with that. You can sell the book, you can give it away, you can do whatever you want, but you have a finite end goal, end product there that you can exchange with other people. What does exchange mean? It means you give it out and you get something back. I sell my books, I'm an author, I sell them, but I also give them away. And somebody recently gave me 50 LPs, really cool ones, just gave them to me, and I gave her a copy of this book, and she wrote back ecstatic about it. She was like, I can't believe this book is amazing. So I get that satisfaction. You can also take it a step further and create your own book in addition to the community book. And of course, you'll know how to do that by the end of this. So that's really important. So that's how it rolls, you guys. And I would like you to take a minute to visualize. Imagine you've achieved your goals as a photographer based on what we've just gone through. Now, let me preface that. You're never going to hit your final goal. You shouldn't. I haven't. I'm always raising the bar. I'm always trying to learn something new. But just state your originally stated goal. Like you want a long-term project on your children, let's say, and you're going to follow them around, just, create a photo story out of them. And you've achieved that. It's to your satisfaction. You've raised the bar. It's in book form. What does that feel like? I leave you with that. I leave you with that thought. Okay, well, that I have rolled out. I told Jared I wanted to do it in about 25 minutes, and I did it. So I'm happy to entertain a Q&A at this point. So tell me what's on your mind, questions or comments. What do you think
All
about
right.
what we've gone over? Jared?
Chicagoland Jared's been had some really good, interesting thoughts that I think can give us something to talk
Well,
about.
let's hear it.
So first, he said, actually, I think art school, and I went to college for music, so I've lived it, is designed to weed out folks they feel cannot/should not pursue it.
Cannot and
And I
should
find
not.
that interesting too, that he says that they feel,
Right.
which I think is very true. They tend to be hard, especially on people that they think shouldn't be trying to pursue it.
I hear you. I'm going to tell you my story about that. When I was in the 5th grade, um, the teacher there was, I actually really loved him as a teacher, but he was also very harsh in terms of what he felt, right? So one of the things he did is he put together a weekend survival class. So you would go off. He selected people who he took out to different places, like to the one of these classes was at a beach, and they had to learn to collect their own food, find their own food, shelter, whatnot. Kind of like Survivor, what you see in Survivor, but it was just a weekend. And he invited a bunch of my, compadres, but he did not invite me. And his comment back to my mom was he wanted to make sure that he didn't throw me into a situation where I would, he didn't think I could handle it. So the upshot of it was I was, out of that entire group, was the only one who went to mountaineering school. I went to a school called Outward Bound, which is deeply beyond anything he could have thrown our way. When I was 16 years old, I went to another mountaineering school called National Outdoor Leadership School, and I learned to be an instructor. So, out of his opinion, he selected the one guy who was destined to take this on as a profession. It's a completely imperfect system, and you're absolutely right. Why should the instructor be the one that decides those things? No, thank you. It's your call. Good point. Point well taken. All right.
Yeah.
Any other?
Jeff Williams has a good question. What's the best way to approach someone to be your mentor?
Well, that's a good point. I would say the criteria are the things that I brought up here. Are they, have they done the hard work themselves to sift through, so they know, what's true and what isn't, and that's only proven by their work. And that gets to, the second point, which is, how is their work? Do you like their work? Does it resonate with you? And third, not everybody can teach. I listen, part of my weeding out process when I do an interview or pre-interview people is I want to only find people who I feel can pass along their wisdom. Not everybody can do that. I have seen, and I'm not going to name names, but I've seen some incredibly high-profile photographers who didn't know how to teach, and are given a very prominent role, but they didn't teach in a way that the common person, not somebody elevated to their level, because what's the point if they're already a high-end top photographer, but they can't bring their skills to your level? You're not going to learn. Bob Holmes has an incredible body of work, but every word out of his mouth is something that you could go out and apply. That's why he's such a great teacher. It's this is the point. So that's the criteria.
And then I think he was specifically saying, so when you find somebody like that, how would you approach them to as a
I
mentor?
see. Yeah, well, I would just ask them, and I've had people ask me that. When my studio was open to people actually being here, I have taken on numerous interns and apprentices over the years, including my own children who have now gone off to remarkable careers. One of them is the lead designer at Instagram. He's been there for 7 years. Does that get me any better placement in Instagram? Absolutely not. No favoritism being played there. I wish it would. But, you can ask the person if they're willing to mentor you. I happen to know a pretty good mentor. I forget his name, but I've seen him around. I think he does a decent job. All right. Any other questions, comments?
I think we have one that gives a really interesting conversation. Jared said this earlier when we were talking about the statistics as far as people getting
Yeah.
involved. He said, with 330 million total U.S. population, are we oversaturating the arts in terms of how many and what percentage
I don't believe so.
of photographers?
I mean,
I think
go ahead.
yes and no, and here would be my reason why. I think that if you want to be just a photographer, and this is something Dan talks about a lot, if you want to be just a photographer, then you're probably not going to succeed. Like if you're putting all your energy in just learning photography and this and that, then there's enough people out there who know how to do that sort of thing. But it's like what Dan talks about, you got to be more,
You got to be more, but there's also
and you got to find something that you're passionate about.
yeah, that's really the key thing. And also, there's so many ways to be a professional in the field, including doing what Dan's talking about, which is making your book on Blurb, which is a self-publishing platform, and you
Hmm.
can get that material sold. So there's many ways to do it, and of course, you're going to find stories of people not making it, but that's the point is like really if you're following your passion and you're dedicated to it, you can find a way to make it work. And again, not everybody wants to make this a paid activity. And I'm not saying that you should necessarily do it as a paid activity, but you should still do it at a level of professionalism that gives you that competence. So, and as far as being oversaturated, look, if we look at the numbers, if these census numbers are accurate, there's only 2 million artists out there. And the population of the US, that's still a really small percentage. But I think again, we're talking about whether you're working as an artist or you have a passion or you want to leave behind something. And I think this is a really, really key point. You want to leave something behind. And I've heard many of you tell me this when I've been doing my interviews. You want to leave something behind that's kind of like your legacy or something your children or grandchildren can look at and say, wow, that's pretty cool. There's something to that. And that's a really
Uh,
important thing.
Jared brings up a good point. He said that he was kind of alluding to the idea of the failure rate of art school,
Yeah,
and that mass production of artists just doesn't seem to work.
yeah,
And I think that that goes well. We're not oversaturated in artists, but we're oversaturated in artists that have nothing to say. And it's just like what you were saying. Art's a communication.
yeah,
Like photography is a communication, as you often say, and it's about what are you trying to communicate. Look at the Humans of New York guy that we talked about on the news
yeah,
show. That's a guy who had something to communicate. And even if his photos aren't, the super stellar, Cartier-Bresson
yeah,
photos, he has a message that's resonating with people. And that's what matters.
exactly. It really is your communication. And, I do like the combination of writing and photography a lot. I like that as a combo. It's funny, the other day I got this email and he said, I just finished doing the audio of your book Create. So my publisher takes care of that kind of stuff. I don't choose who's going to do the read or whatever. But he said it, he was kind of glowing about I love this book and here's why and gave me all this feedback. And I enjoy writing and I enjoy having it accompany or a photograph accompany it. I find that combination is incredible. So everybody's got their way of expressing themselves and communicating, and that important thing is that you are able to do that. And I stand by that. All right, any last questions? Then we've still got a giveaway. We got to give
I think
away
we've
some.
Yeah, I think we've got one really good one to end off on. I'm 15 years old now. Is it too early to start taking photos with a focus on photojournalism at my age, or should I expand on taking photos of everything?
15. I remember when I was 15, I was already kind of a seasoned photographer. No, it is never too early. Start now. Start immediately. But it's, if that's your passion, if you want to start a series, go for it. I think no matter what age, whatever type of photographer you are, I really, really recommend, and you've heard Dan Milner say this, long-term projects are really what's going to bring it all together. So start right now if that's your passion, go for it. But don't exclude other genres that you also want to photograph. That's fine. I mean, I cross a lot of different areas of photography, but I think I have my main passion, in two, which is one is landscape, the other is environmental portraits, meaning photographs of people in their environment. But we all, whatever it is, if it's sports, if it's taking still life, if it's uh, taking children's photographs, whatever that passion is, absolutely go for it. And well done on being on our show at age 15. I think that's fantastic. Were you the one, right? Didn't we have you one of your photographs? Jared, remind me, somebody's dad's Facebook account. Is this who we're talking to here?
Uh, this is Nemi from Sweden. I don't
Okay,
know if I don't think it's the same person. So that just means there's even more really young photographers
I
out
love
there
it.
who are doing fantastic work.
I
So
wish I had this kind of a resource available to me at your age. So anyway, I hope I've given you guys a well-rounded view of what should be there. And I will leave you with this. This is what we're building here at AYP. We're building towards this mentorship and putting all these components in place and eliminating the flaws of art school so that you are winning. And, listen, I try not to give you harsh um, critiques, but I'm going to tell you what I see. And I'm telling you if something needs to be corrected so that you can go out and do it next time with that in mind. And I hope you just go right out and do that. That's the point. And there you have it. So we should give away.
before you
Yeah.
continue, quick correction. It is her
Oh, I thought
from
so.
it. So I would definitely say you clearly have a talent if
Yes.
2 years ago you were taking a photo like
That
that.
was an
So
awesome photo.
it
Yeah.
seems that you clearly have a talent and a passion for it. So I don't think it's, personally, I don't think it's too early to already start focusing. I would definitely say make sure that you're not, dogmatically focusing on that. You're still looking at other things too,
Yeah.
but you clearly have talent.
And you have courage to get in there that close to those guys who, may or may not want people putting a camera in their face. So that's pretty good. Well done. Okay, not pretty good. It's fantastic. I'm underplaying it. So
It's amazing.
well done. Amazing. Okay, Jared, we have a giveaway, right?
We do have a giveaway. I have drawn a name. I've done the magical numbers,
Drum roll, please.
and it's our friend Jeff Williams, a friend from
Hey,
Tennessee.
Jeff.
So I will be getting in touch if you can hear this. I'm hoping that you're a member of the AYP club. I haven't seen yet. I think you are. But I'll be reaching out to you soon, and we'll get you connected with Bay Photo.
Fantastic. Okay, you guys, I hope this helps. And I'm giving you a view of what we're busy building behind the scenes. And we've been putting all this stuff in place. Every component that you've seen come out of AYP recently, like my free book offer, so you can have the book, uh, the courses that go with it, and then the mentorship program that we are building. We are building. We just haven't pulled the curtain on it yet, but you'll see it pretty soon. And we're fine tuning it because we're still we want to make sure when it rolls out it's really got everything in it that it needs. And I've told you what these things are. I'm going to make sure that they're all in it. But it's also the final ingredient is you, and you can actually help shape. And I really mean this from the bottom of my heart. Every one of you helps me shape this community, and you are part of it. So it's super important. Okay. And
We've also got a little giveaway for everybody
oh,
this
yes.
time. Um, so we talked a lot about long-term projects in this, and our good friend Dan Milner has a lot of experience with it and has talked a lot about doing projects. He did an interview with us about 5 tips that he had to create a successful project, and we have turned that into PDF form, and you can
Yay.
get that easily in the link that I'm about to put in chat.
Make sure you
And
grab
so you
that.
can get that there. And we might send you another extra little thing. If you liked the PowerPoint that we had here, we're going to be turning that into a PDF as
That's
well.
right.
And we'll send that over to you too. But that'll come a little later.
Okay. All right, we've given you guys a lot to look at, and think with, so make sure you do that. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe and ring the bell, enable the bell so it lets you know when our new videos come out. It's that easy, and you don't want to miss them. I love your comments. As you can see, we try to answer every one of them, and we'll definitely, if you have another question or whatever, leave it here or comment. Share these with your friends. You're not the only one in your community. Let them know that this is what we're doing here at AYP. They may not know about it, so let them know. And of course, leave your likes. That's always a helpful thing. So, okay, you guys, say this with me because this is really important. We got a weekend coming up here. And through this difficult time, if you remember when we started back in March, I said, this is an antidote to all the stuff that can go wrong during the COVID time. You've got to get out and take walks, but really the other thing is remain creative and say it with me. Remember to get out and capture your own images of life. Love you guys. Stay well, stay safe, stay creative, and we'll see you again real soon. Tune in tomorrow. There's a bunch of new videos. Okay. See you guys.